Hello, my name is Glenn McChesney, and I am a Master of Education student at the American College of Education and a middle school science teacher in the United Arab Emirates. This is a presentation on differentiating project-based and problem-based learning, comparing instructional models in a middle school science classroom. In this presentation, I will discuss the similarities and differences in the two PBL instructional frameworks, problem-based learning and project-based learning. I will also demonstrate how each approach may be used in the science classroom to achieve the same outcomes. Problem-based learning and project-based learning are two instructional models that share many similar qualities. Both models move away from traditional teacher-centered instruction with a shift towards student-centered activities that allow learners to develop the 21st century skills of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Both models allow students to participate in authentic, real-world tasks, usually in cooperative learning groups, which require students to access and use multiple sources of information. In both PBLs, students participate in active learning activities that require them to engage and interact with learning materials in a variety of ways that allow them to develop core content knowledge while stimulating higher-order thinking skills. Technology can be incorporated into the PBL instructional strategies to help teachers develop students' 21st century skills, which can positively enhance student engagement. Problem-based learning begins with the introduction of a complex task. This can be done in a variety of ways, including interactive animations or videos that stimulate student interest on the relevant topics. The next step is for students to define the problem and clarify any key terms they will need for the unit. Students will then analyze the problem based on previous discussions and begin to work in collaborative groups to formulate objectives on how they plan to approach the process of solving the problem. Next, students will do research to collect any information that they will need to provide any further clarifications and to guide them through the problem-solving process. Once their research is complete, students will work in their groups to synthesize the information they have collected and begin to develop a formal solution. The next stage allows student groups to present their solutions to the class, where they will continue to discuss the different perspectives of various groups and receive feedback. In project-based learning, students begin the unit by asking questions. This can be in response to a recent news article, a video, or a reading prompt. Students will refine their questions and will use these as essential questions that will guide their work throughout the project. Next, students will use the key questions to guide them in debating ideas for a collaborative group project. Students will decide on a format for the creation and presentation of their project and make predictions about what they will find. Students will then design plans for their project and then do research to collect any information that is needed. They will then analyze the data as a group and draw any relevant conclusions from the data. They will discuss their findings and begin to finalize their project. Once groups have created an artifact, they will present it to the class, where, again, they will continue to discuss the different perspectives of various groups. While both of the PBLs are quite similar, let's take a look at how each one looks in practice by applying each model to the same topic in a middle school science classroom. For both of the PBLs, I will explain the way I would approach teaching each model on the topic of how non-living factors affect ecosystems and the long-term impact of human activity on an ecosystem. In project-based learning, I would begin by engaging students with a video from YouTube, like this one titled Save the Camels. This video was selected as the content is aligned with the objectives in mind. It is authentic to my students as many of them come from families of camel farmers, and camels are tightly wound to tradition in the UAE. After the introductory video, I would prompt a discussion among the students and get them asking some questions. This could be done as a whole class or small group discussion. Next, I would have students brainstorm ideas for a project they could complete that would answer the key questions they came up with. At this stage, students could make use of graphic organizers or technology solutions like Bubble.us. Next, in groups, students would come together to create a plan for their project. Google Docs offers students the ability to work together online from anywhere and any time. Students could use Google Docs to stay organized and on task throughout the unit. This could be via a teacher-created design plan or one that the students come up with on their own. For this project, the students will need to do some research on the topic. I would direct them to several websites including Gulf News and BBC Bite-Size Science that have many valuable resources and relevant news articles on the topic to get them started. Throughout the project, as a teacher, I would act as a guide to ensure that students are on the right path and that they are on pace for timely completion. Students would have access to a rubric so that they could be aware of the objectives and what they will be assessed on. Once students have gathered enough data and created an outline for their project, they will begin to create them and subsequently present them. Students would receive feedback after their presentations from myself and their peers, and a discussion for future research could ensue. In problem-based learning, I would introduce the topic in the same way as in project-based learning. Students would watch the Save the Camels video, followed by a brief discussion about their reactions to the content. Next, I would introduce the complex task. Here's an example of how I would set up the problem for the unit. Up to 1 in 2 camels in the UAE is dying from eating waste. If unchecked, camel populations could see a significant decline in the coming years. Describe the impact that a decrease in the camel population would have on the environment. Identify factors that are contributing to their decline and propose a solution to the problem. After being given the prompt, I would offer the chance for students to reflect briefly using an advanced graphic organizer such as a KWL chart. Here they can begin to define terms and the problem itself. To help students analyze the problem, I would have them complete a web quest to research the problem of waste affecting camels in the desert and human impact on the environment. After researching, students would collaborate to analyze the problem. They would participate in a group discussion to develop a plan for how they intend to solve the problem based on their research. Using graphic organizers at this stage will help students to organize their work. Students would collect information with their solution in mind and begin to synthesize information into a presentation. Students would use class time to work on developing their solutions and synthesizing their data. Once they have come up with a solution, it would be up to the group to decide how they would like to present their findings to the group. Students would receive feedback after their presentations from myself and their peers, and once again, a discussion for future research could ensue. As you can see, both of the PBL instructional frameworks can be applied in very similar ways, using similar strategies to achieve the same goal. Both models develop students' 21st century skills and allow learners to participate in authentic, real-world tasks that engage and motivate them. Using either of the PBLs is a great way to modify traditional classroom instruction and bring education into the 21st century.